Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering Mauricio Pochettino mutually parting ways with Chelsea, Toni Kroos retiring from from football period after the Euros, England announcing their preliminary squad for the Euros, Roberto Martinez announcing his squad for the Euros, announcing his squad for the Euros, and stay tuned. Make sure you stick around for later in the show, where I'll be giving you my thoughts on the Europa League final tomorrow between Bayer Leverkusen and Atalanta. Before we start, I would like to ask that y'all like and follow the show. We got a number of questions from viewers that come in during the show, so to ensure that your questions get read on the air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net with your questions. This puts your questions at the top of the list so that I can see it, and it also really helps the show. So again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. But as I stated earlier, we're going to start off with Mauricio Pochettino mutually parting ways with Chelsea. Whatever that means, it's apparently a mutual parting of ways. Whatever that means. This is a very mind-boggling situation going around with Chelsea and Mauricio Pochettino. This morning, as I woke up to some news about Toni Kroos retiring from international football, and I thought, wow. I mean, from football, I keep saying international football, from football in general, and I was just like, wow, what a shocker, but didn't expect for me to get out-shocked. Chelsea have had a really bad season. Overall, 6th place is not good enough for the amount of talent or amount of money spent on this team, despite being young and inexperienced. This is a team that must do better than just scrapping into Conference League on the final day, potentially Europa League, depending on what happens with Manchester United's FA Cup final. But this is a team that's been struggling a lot throughout the season. You know, it seems like every time they get one up, they go back down. One time they go up, they go back down. And there was no sort of consistency. And there was a lot of questions being asked of the manager throughout the seasons. A lot of low moments, a lot of difficult moments for the manager. But it seemed like as finally he was able to get over that hill and started to get this team to start going on a run, which they are, besides that Arsenal game, they're unbeaten in their last 15 games. A very good run compared to, you know, what they've been doing last season and up to this point in this season. They've been playing a lot better, a lot more consistent, taking care of the teams that they should take care of. You know, getting out of 11th place hole, climbing all the way up to 6th in very good fashion. They did have that one embarrassment against Arsenal, but every game outside of that has been very, very good, very, very solid for Chelsea. But then this morning it's announced through a club statement that after just one season in charge, it's mutual consent. Again, I keep saying mutual consent because whatever that means. He departed following talks within the past 48 hours with one of the co-owners, Begdad Egbali, and the sporting directors, Paul Wednesday and Lauren Stewart. Pochettino also publicly talked about how he had dinner with co-owner Todd Bowley on Friday. And, you know, and there was a lot of sources that said Pochettino had, despite him having a 1 year remaining on his contract, that the decision was was easy to mutually agree. There was no real hardship between the two. Uh, Look, I think this shows kind of. I was very, very hard on Mauricio Pochettino this season. I think there was moments where I really wanted him gone. When you look at the Wolves game, or especially during the EFL Cup final, the way we took our foot off the gas in extra time, going up against a really young and inexperienced Liverpool players. There was a lot of rough moments for Pochettino this season, but I did give him the credit for he deserves for climbing this team back up to 6, and taking this, getting this team some sort of European football, potentially Europa League football. And yes, entering the season, I had a lot more expectations than that. But it is a young team, so I was starting to feel a little bit more sympathy towards him. And there was times where I've been very, very comfortable and backed the team for making the decision to fire him. Which this is considering a mutual parting ways. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's really. I think it's a firing, but this kind of shows the lack of competence from the Chelsea ownership group, who have made a tremendous amount of mistakes in a short manner. Being the owner of Chelsea Football Club, the amount of mistakes that this team has made regarding transfers, not just the transfers of some players, but the amount of money that they've spent on players. When you look at the Enzo Fernandez's, the Caicedos, and then bringing in a Lafia, a third midfielder that plays in sort of similar role to Enzo and Caicedo. Overpopulating the squad with so many players that they don't even have enough to fit in a locker room. Spending 100+ million on Mikhailo Mudryk, another guy that's raw, another guy that is so inexperienced, that needs to develop. Just so many questionable mistakes coming. Even the signing of Cole Palmer, which now looks like amazing, but was one of their, wasn't their first option entering. They tried out guys like Eze, who refused to come after Chelsea agreed with Crystal Palace on his release clause. And then Cole Palmer, he becomes available, and they overspent for him based on that timing. Now obviously it looks like a good deal, it looks like a bargain, but at that point we were looking at a 40 million for Cole Palmer, and where are you gonna play him? We were looking at it like, was that really that good? We really were thinking this is going to be a bad signing. We were all preparing for a potential another horrible decision made by Chelsea, but that quickly turned to be, a great signing for them, and a bargain signing. Now that you look at it, 40 million for a guy of his production in this market is a very, very good deal. But it's just a lot of mistakes and a lot of bad decisions made by Chelsea. Enzo Fernandez is getting ready to play his second full season on Chelsea, and he'll be under his 5th manager that he's played, and he just came in a year and a half ago. It's unbelievable the turmoil that's been in this club ever since the geopolitical activities between Russia and Ukraine and all that. Ever since that happened, the amount of turmoil, the amount of destruction this club has gone through because of, attacks that really had nothing to do with them, or war that has nothing to do with them, is kind of remarkable. And it's been a knockout effect. And ever since they brought in this new ownership to replace Roman Abramovich, I think it's just been horrible. So much money spent, no trophies to show for it. And, their biggest accomplishment is potentially making Europa League or Europa Conference League football. That's all this ownership group has to show for it. Next year they get to compete in a prestigious Club World Cup, in an elevated Club World Cup, based on the success of the previous ownership. This ownership is going to benefit off that. So I'm just very, very frustrated. Now it's kind of, it's a restart again for this young, youthful Chelsea team. It's a new start. It's basically we have to restart the book of the development, because it seemed like Pochettino was taking this team somewhere. Now you're bringing in a new manager, and it's like, oh yeah, it's time to start from square one. It's time to it's time to start from square one. It's time for you know, it's just a complete restart. And it's just very, very disappointing, very frustrated for a lot of Chelsea fans that's already gone through this, that's already gone through so many struggles the past couple of years. It just seems like we're going to have to do that again next year. Now, Chelsea have came out talking to reporters saying, the board and all that, they've stated they want a guy that plays attacking, open-ended, possession-based football, all that nonsense. Honestly, Chelsea Football Club has always been a club. I'm really getting frustrated with this ownership because Chelsea Football Club has never been a club to try to appeal to some sort of style or all that. Roman Abramovich, when he was the owner, he never cared about attacking football or this or that. He just wanted to bring in the best manager that gave you the best chance to win trophies. And at the end of the day, that's all us Chelsea fans want to care about. So all this, we want a possession based, all that. It's all I don't care. It don't matter. Chelsea need to bring in a manager that can take this team as far as it can immediately. None of this possession. I don't care how the game looks. If the results are coming, let the results come. When Jose Mourinho and Antoine Conte was in Chelsea playing less than pleasant football, did we care? No. As long as the results were there. When Thomas Tuchel lifted the Champions League, did we care that we played a low block? When Jose Mourinho won 3-time Premier League in a row, when he won 3 Premier Leagues for Chelsea, not 3 Premier Leagues in a row, but when he won 3 Premier Leagues for Chelsea, did we care about the style of play? When Antoine Conte came in and won a Premier League for Chelsea a year after we didn't even qualify for Europe and had our worst season under Roman Abramovich, did we care about the style of football we played? No. So the Chelsea board also, they need to understand where the true what truly matters. And that's not no style of football. It's not what Chelsea has ever been. Chelsea's a team of getting results and winning trophies, not based on attacking football or this or that. So we're really, really frustrated with the news, but it is what it is. And even more frustrated with the statements that came out regarding, we want a manager that plays attacking football and all that. No, that's not what Chelsea's DNA is. Chelsea's DNA is winning, no matter what kind of football that they play. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll discuss Toni Kroos retiring from football after the European Championship.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we discussed Pochettino mutually parting ways with Chelsea. Before we start off with the second break, I'd like to remind you that we get a lot of tips and donations that come in during the show. So to ensure that your questions get read on the air, please use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net with your questions. This puts your questions at the top of the list so that I can see it, and it also really helps grow the show. So there you go, guys. This morning, I woke up to the surprising news that Toni Kroos will retire from football after the European Championships this summer. Where do we start off? I don't know if you want to go to the legacy of it or the surprise of it. Let's start off with the surprise of it. Toni Kroos, he always, the way he spoke, he never seemed like the kind of guy that wanted to, even though most did. Most in the world do. He never seemed the kind of guy that would go to MLS or Saudi and, finish off his career. He never had that persona. He seemed like the guy that wanted to retire on the top, kind of like a Zidane guy. He had that kind of nature to him. And we've seen him previously, his thoughts on Saudi League and all that. He's been very critical of it. He hasn't been a big fan of it. He's lashed out at it multiple times. In fact, earlier this year, when he was playing at the in Saudi Arabia for the Super Copa final, every time he touched the ball, he was heard by a lot of boos, which was expected. But he's been very critical on the Saudi Pro League, saying they say they're all about ambitions, but it's all about money. He said whenever Celta Vigo's forward Gabriel Vega transferred to Al Ali, a 21-year-old, he commented on that post, on that report, saying it's embarrassing, and he's just not a fan of it. And it's clear that he wants to end off playing at the top of football, and he thinks if he wins a Champions League and then does really well for the Euros for Germany, he can have that kind of Zidane-like exit for his career. Now, as far as him and his legacy, brilliant player. Toni Kroos, brilliant player. He's won 22 trophies with Real Madrid since he joined 10 years ago. He has 4 Champions Leagues with Madrid. He has 1 with Bayern, and he has 4 La Liga titles. He's a brilliant player. His passing ability, his passing range, his ability to be a composer in the midfield, be calm under pressure, ability to drive forward, never had pace, never seemed like a freak of nature in terms of athleticism, none of that. But his ability to drive forward with the ball, to play a line-breaking ball, the assist he had to Vinicius is one of in the Champions League semifinals to break the deadlock. It's just one of the This is just his nature, of his amazing ability, his footballing nature. He's a brilliant talent, and he's accomplished so much in his career. But yeah, he's a complete talented player. He won a World Cup with Germany. He has not won a European Championship, but he has a chance to win it this summer, which will really complete. He's done everything at that point, winning a Continental Championship for his country, winning a World Cup, doing everything for club, winning the league, winning the Champions League, winning domestic cups, doing treble, winning a Champions League also at Bayern. He's done everything. He's a brilliant player. He showed up in all the big games, going back in the 2014 World Cup, in the 7-1 game. His ability, the capacity to run in the box and score a goal like he had earlier in the career, and then he developed more into a deep line, composed playmaker that he was at Real Madrid. And he had a lot of great career moments. But I think when I think of Toni Kroos, I think his best moment in his career, or the biggest moment I think in his career, we gotta go back. The 2018 World Cup, Germany entering this game against Sweden on the basis of already losing the opening game to Mexico. This is a very essential game for Germany. They're taking on a Sweden national team with talent. They're very, very good. Sweden takes an early goal lead, and then Germany at halftime, or right after the half, were able to equalize with Marco Reus. and they're struggling. Time is going on. Time is running out. They struggle to get a goal. They suffer a red card, go down to 8 men. It was 2-3 minutes left in the game. And then the moment of magic happened. They earned a free kick. And they do an indirect free, or not indirect essentially, but what they do is they play a short little ball. And then I forgot who the German player was, but he stops it right in front of Toni Kroos, and he just curls it, an amazing ball into the back of the net. Boom, 2-1, Germany win. Bam, they're in the World Cup. They win that game. Now they ended up getting eliminated in the next game, and they didn't even move on to the next round. They ended up losing to South Korea in the final game, so it didn't end up mattering that much but in that moment, it was a high pressurized moment. It was a critical moment for Germany to save them in the World Cup. They needed that win, and he showed up for them, despite it going horribly wrong the next game later. But in that moment, it was wow, what a moment. And he's just done everything. Whenever you see his legacy, there's not much else that he could add. It's just brilliant. He went through some downsides in his career earlier with Bayern Munich, kind of not really realizing the talent that they have in the way that they treated him. But then he came with vengeance in Real Madrid and just completely proved everybody wrong. Kroos did post on Instagram after 10 years, he said this himself, after 10 years at the end of the season, this chapter comes to an end. I would particularly like to thank everyone that welcomed me with an open heart and trusted me. But especially, I would like to thank you, dear Madristas, for your affection and your love from the first day until the last one. At the same time, this decision means that my career as an active footballer will end in the summer after the European Championship. As I have always said, Real Madrid is and will be my last club. I am happy and proud that in my mind I found the right timing for my decision and that I could choose it by my own. My ambition was always to finish my career at the peak of my performance level. See, and that's exactly what he did. He's coming out on the top. He's still playing brilliant football, and he wants to retire. That's always been what he wanted to do, and respect to it. Some players, they overdo it, playing way out of their prime. But he wants to be, he wants him to leave at the highest that he can, and that's what he wants to do. Now, there's a lot of time that he has after he retires to regret this decision, thinking, did I have a few more years that I could really give it more, missing playing what I do the best. But at the end of the day, I don't think he's a guy that's going to be full of regrets. He seems like very in with his decision. And look, he still has a lot to play for. He has one more game with Real Madrid. He has the end of La Liga, actually. The end of La Liga is this weekend, which maybe gives him a chance to do some sort of farewell, because that will be his last game at the Bernabeu. But then he has the Champions League final against Borussia Dortmund, and then he has the upcoming European Championship at home in Germany in front of his home crowd. Everyone is going to be behind him. Everyone's going to want to win the Euros. Well, not for him, but for Germany. But, that's the added initiative. And I think it will give this Germany team a little bit of an extra spark at this Euros, which they will need because, they're not coming in the best of forms. But I'm going to take a short break here. But when I come back, I'm going to discuss England announcing their preliminary squad for the Euros.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we discussed Toni Kroos retiring from international football, but now we have to discuss England announcing their preliminary squad for Euros. Look, this is not a narrow squad that Gareth Southgate announced. We've seen with the Euro preliminary or the Copa America preliminary squads, this essentially been the teams that they're going to take to the Euros with an extra guy in here and there, maybe one or two cuts. But this is a legit preliminary roster. When you look at the fact that 33 players are in the squad, this gives, there's going to be a lot of players cut in, about 7, maybe even 8 players cut in. He's bringing in, he gave call-ups to guys like Eberechi Eze, Margehi, and Kobe Mainu, but no spot for Marcus Rashford or Jordan Henderson. And then he includes players like Curtis Jones, Gerald Kwanzaa, Jared Branthwaite, Adam Wharton, and James Trafford, Burnley's goalkeeper, with this a new expanded group or so. And then some of the guys that we're expecting to be really essential for the squad, like a Cole Palmer, Anthony Gordon, a Jack Grealish. Not Jack Grealish, but the obvious ones like Harry Kane, all that. They're in there. Jack Grealish is also in the squad. Luke Shaw is their only natural left back. That's a big question, That's their only natural left back, and it's not like he's been lighting up the road this season. He's been injured a lot. He's been very injured this season. So, there's things to discuss, with the squad. There's some holes in there. There's some very strength in there, There's some strength in there, but there are some holes as well. Jude Bellingham, it's weird. He was listed as a forward in the squad. Interesting. So has James Maddison, Phil Foden, Cole Palmer, Eberechi Eze. Trent Alexander-Arnold is in with the midfielders, and it's an interesting squad. Now, left back is going to be his biggest concern, Gareth Southgate. The only natural left back, it has been Luke Shaw, but he's been in and out all season. In fact, he's barely played all season. Not even in and out. He hasn't played all season. Gareth Southgate said a few months ago that Luke Shaw is one of the best left backs in world football. Frankly, I completely disagree with that. But if he is going to regain fitness, he's the obvious first choice at left back just by default. Kieran Trippier in the high, important, crucial games, he's really been the main guy at left back unnaturally for England, and he'll probably be the backup left back now. But he also gives you an ability to play right back. He's been very, very dependable for Gareth Southgate. I think the left back is a big concern for them. Just the fact that their one natural left back that they have in the squad is someone that hasn't played all season. Marcus Rashford not being in the squad. Now look, if you want to base this off like what he's done over the past few years, I guess you could say it's surprising. But let's be honest, based on this year, he's been horrible. and there's been much better players than him just based on performance this season, and that's worthy of the call-up award. And if you look at Marcus Rashford, the way that he's performed heading into the into international tournaments kind of determined the way how his summer tournaments go. When you look at last year, his performances in England led to a good World Cup. Before that, when he had a bad season with England, with Manchester United before Euro 2021, it ended up, he ended up having a bad European Championship, and bringing him in this team, you already got guys that just are playing much better than him. Anthony Gordon can do a lot of what he does, but he's on good form, and he's been very, very good this season. And Gareth Southgate just came out right away and said other players are playing better than him at the moment, so that's why he's not in. And at the end of the day, that is the facts. Southgate did state regarding his selections, I'd have loved it to be cleaner or more definitive, but that's not the position we are in. He talked about how injury issues were obvious, but others were more, nuanced, and how the camp goes in these few weeks, how the friendly goes. Make it more simplified, but he said himself that this is as complicated a group as I can remember picking. Eric Dyer, he's not in the squad at all, even though guys like Lewis Dunk and Jarrell Kwanzaa is there, despite how he's been performing at Bayern at the top level in Champions League semifinals and quarterfinals, all that. The way he's performing, he's not going to be in the squad. He will probably be very, very sad, and not disappointed with the thing. And I think he's a guy that gave you a little bit of flexibility, even though he hasn't played there in a while. He is an option in midfield, even though you have much better players than him there. But when you're looking at it, at that role, at that number 6 position, you had. In the last years, you had, Declan Rice, and you had Calvin Phillips. You had options there, but it's a little bit weaker now, You have Declan Rice there with Bellingham and all that, and then next to them, what do you really have? You have a Conor Gallagher, maybe. You might play Trent. It's just, Eric Dyer, he gave you that sort of option. So I'm a little surprised about that. Jordan Henderson, I'm surprised about that. Gareth Southgate finally leaves out his favorites. I don't necessarily know. I thought he could give you experience, but he said, Southgate himself said the determining factor was the injury. He picked up the last camp. He missed 5 weeks and wasn't able to get back up to the level of intensity. It was a difficult decision. He will be a miss. He's an exceptional individual and fantastic human being. He's been in that leadership role for a long time. But this team does have a lot of attacking talent. You have to say, there's a lot of talent in this team, with the guys like Harry Kane, Ollie Watkins, who's had a brilliant season for Aston Villa, Phil Foden, Cole Palmer, who's had a brilliant season. They have a lot of attacking talent. Ivan Toni was able to get into this preliminary squad ahead of Dominic Solanke, which surprised some people. But, we have to realize the performance, the levels of Ivan Toni since coming off of the ban, what hasn't been the best, but you got to remember what he's able to do over the longevity of his Premier League career. Ever since he got promoted, he's been a brilliant, brilliant player. He's more of a target man, but has pace too, can run in behind. I think that's the right choice, in my opinion. Solanke has a little bit of a ceiling. Despite his form, I feel like Ivan Toni just gives you a little bit more. But yeah, I think the main takeaways of this is, Marcus Rashford not being there, and the fact that you only take one natural left back. I think maybe you could, in this preliminary squad, you could bring in a guy like Ben Chilwell to give you some sort of option. Maybe he's able to rediscover form through the through these friendlies, through the preparation, I'm able to see if he is healthy, if he can get back firing what he was like at fully healthy. He can give you a backup option for Luke Shaw at left back, but it's not the best position for Gareth Southgate to be in, with only having one natural left back. And even, if you want to go with a Kieran Trippier at left back, he's not having a good season either for Newcastle. He's been very, very poor this season, Kieran Trippier. He's been struggling, not only going forward, but defending one-on-one. He hasn't been the best defender, and he's kind of been the experienced guy that they've trusted at that left-back position in the big games throughout the season and throughout the last few tournaments. So yeah, that's also interesting aspect to this. But now we really get to see, now with this preliminary squad coming out, it's kind of, some of the guys that are here, it's kind of obvious they're not going to make the squad. There's a few obvious cuts, like we know James Trafford, he's not going to get in there. So, guys like Gerald Quenza, Jared Branthwaite, Curtis Jones, Adam Wharton. We know those guys, they're not going to be in the squad. But the rest of them, it's going to be interesting who he decides and who he's going to keep and take to the Euros, and who's also going to head home with them. We're going to take a short break here shortly. When we come back, we'll discuss Roberto Martinez announcing his Portugal squad for the Euros.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Roberto Martinez announced his Portugal squad for the Euros for this upcoming summer European Championship. And, I don't know if this is a crazy thing to say, but in my opinion, just based on talent, we might be looking at the most talented team at this Euros. Maybe that's a little blasphemous to say when you have a team like France with the amount of talent that they have. But when you look at this team, you really struggle to see the holes in this team. Goalkeeper, you got a solid goalkeeper in Diego Costa, with good backup options with Rui Patricio, Jose Sa. Defense is very, very solid. Guys on good form. Diego Dalot, João Cancelo, Nuno Mendes, Pepe, Ruben Diaz. All very, very good, very, very talented players. All players that will, that are playing very, very well in Europe for their big clubs. Then you look at the midfield, you got the talent, the attacking talent of Bruno Fernandes. You got a guy like João Neves, João Palhinha, Otavio, Ruben Neves, and then Vitinha, who's had a brilliant season for PSG. He's a guy that can come in, he'll make an immediate impact, he'll be a game changer for this Portugal team. The way he was able to dominate the later ties in the Champions League round, Vitinha did in midfield, I think he'll be able to do that at the Euros for Portugal. It's a guy, he's not afraid of the moment. And it seemed like Portugal had a few of those players at the last World Cup. They had some players that were kind of scared of the moment, that couldn't live up when the pressure was high. But I think Vitinha is a guy that will live up with the pressure is high, and I think that makes this Portugal team even more deadly with the talent that they have. And then you look at the attacking talent. No team in this Euros has this kind of attacking talent. With João Felix, Bernardo Silva, Rafael Leao, Diego Jota, and Gonzalo Ramos, Francesco Conceição, Pedro Neto, and I don't know if I said Rafael Leao already. But it's the team with complete talent. Everyone in that attacking lineup, front three completely. And then you got a guy like Cristiano Ronaldo, who's played, I guess he's, sounds like he's playing really well in Saudi. I wouldn't know. I don't watch their games game in, game out. He does have a ridiculous goal scoring record, but he's also going to be there. Now, Cristiano Ronaldo was a bit of a nightmare for Fernando Santos last Euros. In terms of our last World Cup, not last Euros, but last World Cup, in terms of his attitude and all that. He came in off of a bad season at Manchester United, and in the World Cup it was not that much better. Struggled a lot in his opening games, had a bad reaction against South Korea, and then ended up playing against didn't end up playing in the round of 16, or came on late, and then in the quarterfinals came on late in the second half to try to save them against Morocco. Didn't really do much, but it seems like he's rediscovering his form again, playing in Saudi League football, playing very, very well there. Roberto Martinez has came in. He's kept him integrated within the squad. Keep calling him up for friendlies, where he continued to perform for Portugal. They dominated the European qualifiers. They dominated the European qualifiers. Just completely dominated their group. They finished first in their group with 10 wins and no losses. They scored 36 goals and conceded 2 for a 34 goal differential. Just completely dominated their group, and that's and it's good signs when you're entering a European Championship playing that well of a football. Roberto Martinez, I feel like he's more of a fit than Fernando Santos for this Portugal team. Fernando Santos, what he did Euro 2016 was remarkable. It was a team with less talent than what they have now, but they played very conservative, low block football, and then played on the counter and played very, very defensive, compact football. And that's what that Portugal team needed. But now with this Portugal team, they started progressing more talent, and Fernando Santos' way just didn't really work with this team. They needed a manager that can come in and play open-ended, expanded football, and that's what Roberto Martinez does. And he's came in and he's had a brilliant start to his Portugal managerial career. Now, the issue with this comes later on in the rounds. Roberto Martinez's teams have struggled whenever he managed Belgium to really get over the line, to win the World Cups and all that. But Roberto Martinez did manage a Belgium side that got past Brazil in the quarterfinals, and then they took on a juggernaut in France, in which they played a game against France where in terms of the 90 minutes, in terms of the football played on the pitch, they outplayed France. They controlled more possession and all that. But France was just more clinical on the counter. They were able to capitalize off the set-piece opportunity, defend very, very well, take advantage of space and transition. They couldn't find that second goal, but they created a lot of chances. And Belgium, they just couldn't get it over the line. And at the end of the day, is Roberto Martinez to blame for that? No. Is Roberto Martinez to blame for the issues that happened in the following World Cup with the issues between Trossard and Hazard, or the issues between Vertonghen and I believe it was Vertonghen and De Bruyne. Vertonghen and De Bruyne. I think that some of the criticism was harsh, but he wasn't able to get that team over the line. And I think there's a feeling of this might be the case for this Portugal team, because despite that talent, it's just a team that's really struggled to get over the line with the talent that they have. But based on talent, they have amazing players. Now they're in a group. They take on a Czech Republic team that had a very, very good Euros last time. They reached the quarterfinals. They actually, the last Euros, they actually reached farther than what Portugal were able to reach. Portugal lost to, ironically, Belgium. Portugal lost, ironically, to Belgium in the last Euros. This Euros, they'll take on Czech Republic, Turkey, and Georgia in the group stages. Or rather, more comfortable group from them. Turkey is they're a talented team. Czech Republic, they played very, very well at the last Euros, had decent qualifiers, and then they got a Georgia team that scraped in through penalties to get here. Kind of a non-experienced, not that great of a team. They do have a guy like Kvaratskhelia that can be a game changer, but it's Portugal. It's their group to win with the talent that they have. This should be a group that they wipe through clean. And I think that they will, just because of the way that they wipe through their qualifier group. I think they'll do something similar of that type of nature in this group. They'll take care of these teams. But when they are going up against the Spains, the Frances, the Germanys in Germany, you remember last time Portugal took on Germany at the Euros with the talented roster that they had at last Euros as well. They had a very talented roster. They took on Germany in Munich, in Germany, and they got completely wiped the floor by a German team, which, by the way, that one game was probably Germany's best international performance in a major international tournament since 2016. That's been the only bright spot of Germany since 2016 when it comes to international football. That was the only thing. So Portugal have struggled against some of the top teams in European in international tournaments. They beat Switzerland last year, last World Cup, a weak Switzerland team, and then before that, they lost to the first decent team that they played in Belgium, and then before that in 2014. They lost the first decent team, or 2018, they lost to the first decent team that they played in Uruguay. So it's going to be an interesting journey for Portugal. Portugal had won the 2016 Euros, so they do have that kind of pedigree with. They have some players in this team that was Cristiano Ronaldo, Danilo Pereira. They have some guys that were part of that team. They have that Rui Patricio. They have that pedigree, but they also have some younger guys. Ruben Neves was also part of that team, I believe. But they also have some inexperience to some youth with a guy like Pedro Neto. Gonzalo Ramos, who did play in the last World Cup, and Pepe was also part of that World Cup team. How could you forget about Pepe? Euros team, integral part of that Euros team. But no, I'm very, very interested to see how Portugal come out this Euros. It's gonna be a different Portugal team. We haven't seen this Portugal team ever. A Portugal team that's gonna be as expansive, as open-ended as they're gonna be. They're gonna play very high attacking level, high intensity football, open-ended football, end-to-end football, pleasant football to watch. So I'm interested to watch this Portugal team at this upcoming European Championship. We're gonna take a short break here, and then when we come back, I'm gonna preview the Europa League final tomorrow between Leverkusen and Atalanta. before the break, we discussed Roberto Martinez announcing his Portugal squad for the Euros. Now we're going to preview the Europa League final between Bayern Leverkusen and Atalanta. Interesting Europa League final coming up. Both teams could, do something historic for their clubs. Bayern Leverkusen currently unbeaten in all competition. They're looking to battle for treble. They win their last 2 games. They finished the season unbeaten completely, and they win a treble as they play this Europa League final against Atalanta. And they also have the DFB Pokal against FC Kleistersloren. I butchered that, but they take on them on Saturday on a short week. That will be a little bit of a tough task for them, but a task that they can complete because they are a clutch team. They have that. And then Atalanta, they have had they are a team that has gone very, very long without winning a trophy, a 61-year trophy drought that they are kind of want to end this Saturday or tomorrow. So crucial game for both teams. The Europa League final will be played in Dublin at Aviva Stadium. Bayern Leverkusen, as I said, they're going to try to wrap up part 2 of their treble. And then Atalanta, they're going to try to lift their first major silverware. And this is Xabi Alonso's first full season as the manager for Bayern Leverkusen. He's talked about how our focus, he said this himself, our focus is preparing the game, not as a special game. We haven't changed anything. We have played 51 games. The players have, in which they're unbeaten in, by the way, guys. The players have understanding. Now is the time to give our best. We have been preparing for this moment through the whole year. It's not just today's job. I have a great team. The players are ready for sure. I have a good feeling it will not be different. We will respect Atalanta, but we have confidence in our game, as they should. The amount of games that they lost, it's been amazing. The 2 finalists ended British teams in the Europa League quarterfinals when Leverkusen were able to knock out West Ham and Atalanta were able to knock out Liverpool. Atalanta's manager Gian Piero Gasperini said, I think we're in the best possible condition in a psychological and physical sense. Leverkusen are a complete team, extremely organized. They are versatile. They can defend and recover the ball well. The results they have achieved this season are not an accident. We have to respect them and try to adapt quickly to the opponents we are facing. This is a game that is between 2 brilliant managers, 2 transformative managers, 2 attack-minded managers. But 2 managers kind of on different arcs in their career. Xabi Alonso first coming into his career, but with difference with Gasperini, an older manager who's trying to get silverware for his team. They're a very, very attack-minded team, Atalanta, and so is Leverkusen. They're both attack-minded. They love to press up high, win the ball high, get numbers forward. Both scored a lot of goals this season, and I think we're going to have an amazing final, amazing end-to-end final, pressure high football. But the thing that I love, that makes me love Leverkusen's chances in this final, not just the fact that they're unbeaten this entire season, they've won the Bundesliga dominantly, they're on the verge of winning, not just because of that, but because of the amount of goals that they were able to score late this season. When you do it 1 or 2 times or 3 times, you can say, oh yeah, this is a team scraping by. But when you do it the amount of times that Leverkusen has been able to do it this season, it shows the kind of clutch ability this team has, the ability to come up calm under pressure, to stay calm, stay composed, play the football that you played earlier in the game, continue playing that despite the pressure of chasing a result or chasing a victory, but not, taking the easy way out and trying to play a long ball, but deciding to continue to play football in the patterns of play that your manager has taught you throughout the training sessions. It's hard whenever you're in these late game situations and you're down a goal late and you're trying to save your season. When you have had a manager, when you're in those situations, it's hard to stay focused on the task at hand and to continue with the pattern of plays that you've been taught, and you try to take the easy way outs and trying to play some sort of long ball in or whooping across from a place that you shouldn't be whooping it in. But they stay composed to their game and they play late in those situations like if it was 0-0 in the 15th, 16th minute. And that's what makes this Leverkusen team brilliant. I say this all the time, but their ability to get their fullbacks involved in attacking play with Grimaldo and Jeremy Frimpong, with the two abilities, the capacities that they have to get in the box and score a goal, to cross a ball in, the ability to create for their teammates and assist. The goal and assist contributions both guys have had has been amazing. Granit Xhaka, who's came in and he's been a composer of the midfield. Florian Wirtz, who's coming off a torn ACL and showing his attacking nature and his ability to will this team. This team is very, very, very talented, and it's hard to go against them with the clutch nature that they show. And with one game in it to go win Europa League in the final, it's just hard to pick against them. But Atalanta do have talent, and they're shown that they can upset a favorite. Liverpool, they were really the clear favorites to win this Europa League, and Atalanta, they took care of them in supreme fashion. They took care of them 3-0 at Anfield, and it could have been 4-5 with the chances that they missed, with some of the good chances that they missed. I had a point I wanted to make, but I cannot find my notes at this point. But yeah, I just think the way both of these teams play, it's gonna be a great open-ended game. And I'm not saying Atalanta doesn't have a chance, because you have to have some sort of some sort of pedigree to even reach this final. But Atalanta, they are going to be handicapped. They have a handful of injuries that they are dealing with. Their vice captain, Martin De Roon, he's not going to be involved. He picked up a knee injury during the loss to Juventus in the Coppa Italia last Wednesday. And that's also, I also didn't talk about that, how they did lose another cup final on Wednesday to Juventus. That's a big loss for them, and they struggled to get over the line in that final. So that's unfortunate for them, but that's what they're coming in this game into. But there's also Said Kolasinac, who nursed a muscular injury, and Emil Holm, who has been injured for the last 9 games. They're not going to be back. So, and then Rafael Toloi, he's not expected to start. So it's going to be probably Behrad Djimisti, who's going to be their captain against Leverkusen in the final. This is a game, by the way, both of these teams are already in the Champions League next year. Serie A got an extra Champions League spot due to the 5th place coalition thing. Leverkusen, they won the league, so none of these two teams are playing for the Champions League. They're both strictly going for the final at this point. And there's, the stakes is high for both, or the stakes is the same for both teams. None of these teams are out of sort of a level of desperation of having to win it to reach the Champions League. That could be an added factor when you're trying to preview, these Europa League final games, or like an FA Cup game for a team to reach the Europa League and all that. But there's, like, Man United have that initiative of trying to reach the Europa League in the FA Cup final against City. But these two teams, they've both reached the Champions League. So there's None of that. Atalanta since Gasperini has come in, they've always been a team that scored a ridiculous amount of goals. This season they scored 67, but for a team that finished 5th place, that's very, very good margin. You know, they scored more than every team in the Serie A besides number 1 and number 2, despite finishing 5th place. And they've scored 15 and 13 more goals respectively than the 2 teams that finish above them. So, you know, Atalanta, they do have their attacking prowess. They're not afraid to push guys forward. So I'm really interested to see how this goes. And it'll be nice for Gasperini to get his first silverware at Atalanta. Thank you guys for tuning in to the show. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sport Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.